I've decided I want kids, so I'm thinking about divorce. What are you talking about all of a sudden? Stop making weird jokes like this. It's not a joke. I figured you wouldn't yell like you do at work since we're in a hospital, right? That's why I thought it'd be easier to talk about it here. You might think it's because of my ED that you suspect there could be an issue on my end, but to be frank, with you being older, it just doesn't work for me. Listen here, you. My husband chose the most inappropriate time and place to bring up divorce, right in the middle of a hospital waiting room. Indeed, the chances of me getting pregnant are extremely slim. But that was something known before we got married. Furthermore, my husband called me old, but he knew about the 17-year age gap between us when we met. I'm furious that he's turned everything upside down now. However, because we're in a hospital, I can't yell at him as he probably predicted. As I'm pondering what to do with my anger, we're called into the doctor's office. This is a bit difficult to say. Once we enter the doctor's office and hear the doctor's words, my husband is speechless. My anger turns into laughter. My name is Emily. I'm a 41-year-old company employee who was single until recently. I'm known for being strict at work, pushing the younger generation hard. Before I got married, being in my 40s and single, I was known behind my back as the old maid by the younger female employees because of my demanding nature at work. However, I wasn't really bothered by it. I believe there are good and bad old maids. In my opinion, a good old maid is strict for the person's own good. If you can't perform well at work, it's you who will suffer by causing trouble for the company and those around you. So, if being a bit harsh makes things run smoothly, and even if it makes me disliked, I'm fine with that. A bad old maid, on the other hand, blames others for their own failures at work or vents their personal frustrations at work on those who are in a weaker position. They use their job as a shield to turn the workplace into a stress relief area. If there are good and bad old maids, I strive to be a good one. Of course, people have their own opinions, and some may dislike me just for being considered an old maid. But there are those who understand my approach. Tom was one of them. You should have made a procedure manual, I've told you. If you had followed a checklist, this mistake wouldn't have happened. I thought we didn't need a procedure manual since there weren't many steps. And by not making one, you ended up making a mistake, didn't you? I'm sorry. I'll make a procedure manual for all the tasks right away. With a gloomy aura, my husband returned to his desk and immediately started typing away on the keyboard. My husband and I have a senior-junior relationship at work. However, when he joined the company at 22 as a fresh graduate, I was already 39. Making it more of a veteran-newcomer relationship given our 17-year age difference. He wasn't very adept and often made mistakes, so I, as his senior, frequently scolded him. But he always took the criticism well. He's the type that needs everything explained from start to finish, but once you do, he goes above and beyond. Emily, I've completed the procedure manuals for all the tasks I'm involved in. Could you check them when you have time? What? You did all that overnight? When did you even find the time? I thought it was necessary to have them reviewed before starting the work, so I prepared them at home. I'm impressed you finished it all in one night. I'll look over them right away. Bringing work home isn't exactly commendable these days. But I couldn't help praising him for the effort he put in, far exceeding my expectations. Unlike other young employees, he never complained, no matter how sternly I admonished him. He's a classic hard worker and very sincere. Within a year, he significantly outperformed his peers, being trusted with work independently and given more responsibilities than them. Your peers still need checks on almost everything they do, but you're almost able to work on your own now. The department head has been praising your efforts. It's all thanks to you, Emily. Thank you for teaching me so much. I took a liking to my honest husband and often invited him for drinks after work. While other young employees might dread drinking with me, he always seemed happy to be invited. I found it endearing and often asked him out for drinks. Of course, my affection was purely platonic, as he was a junior employee. However, he began to develop romantic feelings for me. "Emily, please take me out for drinks again sometime." "Again?" "Well, sure. But in return, make sure you keep up the good work." It was clear he had feelings for me. It wasn't a case of a 40-year-old woman mistakenly thinking a younger guy was into her. People around us were whispering that Tom had a thing for me. Having given up on romance long ago, at 40, I kept telling myself there was no way a guy 17 years younger could be into me, yet I secretly hoped for what might come. Before long, Tom confessed, just as I had hoped. Being envied for dating a serious young man 17 years my junior at 40 was quite the turnaround. Still, I couldn't help but wonder what Tom saw in an older lady like me. So, despite it probably not being something I should ask, I couldn't help myself and questioned Tom. "Why me? Isn't it normal to dislike someone who's always scolding you at work?" "What? But you scold me because you care, right? I know I'm not the most reliable type, so I fell for you, Emily, who pushes me and helps me grow." Tom answered my troublesome question honestly. Despite asking, his straightforward response made me blush. I knew from work that Tom was ambitious. So, he must have appreciated me for helping him grow. Also, Tom was surprisingly shy about love before, barely able to talk to women. So, having interacted with me daily at work, he, inexperienced in love, ended up attracted to an older woman like me, or so I've analyzed. After dating Tom, I was elated every day, and people said I became kinder and stopped being called the old maid behind my back. With both work and my personal life going well, I was definitely riding high, but about a month into our relationship, I decided it was time to face reality. There was one significant issue for Tom and me to continue together. "Tom, there's something I need to be clear about if we're gonna stay together." "What? Marriage? We talked about that when we started dating, right? You said if we're dating at 40, it's with marriage in mind." "That too, but I want to talk about what comes after." "You want kids if we marry, right?" "I might have trouble having children." "Is it because of your age?" "That's part of it. The chance of getting pregnant at 40 is about 5%, but it's not just that. I have a hard time producing female hormones, making it even harder to conceive on top of my age. I hadn't been proactive about fertility treatments since I had given up on marriage. The chances of me getting pregnant might be as low as 1%. Bringing up this topic during a holiday at Tom's place turned our happy atmosphere dark and heavy. I feared this conversation might mean having to break up with my newly found boyfriend. I couldn't look at Tom, tense, waiting for his response. "Kids? I'd like some, but if it's not possible, it's not." "So, what's the issue? Whether we try fertility treatments or not?" I intended to have a serious conversation, but Tom didn't seem to think it was all that grave. He looked at me, puzzled by my question, wondering why I was so tense. Tom's reaction made all the tension drain from me. Now, a year into our relationship, Tom and I are married. After getting married, nothing changed at work. Both my husband and I are working at the same company, in the same department. On the personal front, living together with my husband, we started fertility treatments. Regarding children, both my husband and I have decided to leave it up to fate, so we don't see it as a serious issue. Because of that, our marital life has been smooth sailing. I thought we would continue to live happily ever after. However, not long after we got married, I started noticing gradual changes in my husband's behavior. A year into our marriage, a slight discrepancy emerged between my husband and me regarding our thoughts on having children. Maybe it's okay to give up on having kids? The money and time spent on treatment could be used for something else. But I heard that the pregnancy rate drops to about 1% at 45, so I want to keep trying until I turn 45. That 1%, isn't that for women without any issues? In Emily's case, it might drop to 0% even before hitting 45. I still want to try for that slim chance. Alright, 45 is the deadline then. Whenever we talk about kids, he looks at me like a new employee who won't listen. But he always ends up agreeing with me in the end. We both are leaving the child matter to fate. However, while I want to try every possible option, my husband seems to have already given up. Still, since our opinions don't clash too harshly, I don't consider it a big problem. Thus, our marital life continues without major upheavals, as peaceful as ever. Also, my husband still gets scolded by me at work as usual. Bringing work home again? I appreciate your dedication, but I think you are working too much at home. I know. But I just can't find a good stopping point. Are you tired? You sound lifeless. You really need to rest properly at home. Yeah, I've been having severe shoulder pain and my fingers are stiff from too much typing. You're right, Emily, I'll make sure to rest at home. When scolded by me, my husband closes his laptop and lies down on the couch. Since he seems tired, I decide to go to the hospital alone. No, not just for today. My husband, already in a mood of resignation about children, has clearly been accompanying me to the hospital less frequently. A year into our marriage and fertility treatments, my health is gradually improving. However, even with my body returning to normal, getting pregnant still seems to be a high hurdle. Your female hormone levels are improving. However, is it because of my age that we can't have children? Yes. Unfortunately, age is something we can't change with treatment. But don't give up. Many women in their 40s have experienced pregnancy. The doctor encouraged me to keep trying, and I understood what he meant, being an adult. Still, I'm not giving up on having children. Later, the doctor made a suggestion, perhaps understanding my determination. How about getting your husband to take a fertility test? My husband? But the infertility issue is with me, right? It's not uncommon for both partners to have fertility issues. And it's not that we suspect your husband can't have children at all. If there are any factors that could be reducing the chances of pregnancy, identifying and improving them might increase the chances. Hearing the doctor's suggestion made me worried. Lately, my husband hasn't been as energetic at night. It led to us giving up midway through our attempts. I thought it was just exhaustion from work, but now I wonder if it's not just fatigue. However, this is a delicate issue, and I'm not sure how to bring it up. Moreover, my husband has already given up on having children, so he might not be cooperative. I remembered the resolve I had when I first brought up infertility before we got married. Such conversations shouldn't be put off. Besides, I have a deadline. I steeled my resolve and opened the living room door with a bit more force. Ouch, that stings. What happened? You've injured your knee. I went to the convenience store earlier and fell on my way back. Again? You fell on your way to work the other day, too. Be careful. Here, give me the disinfectant. I'll apply it for you. As I applied the disinfectant to the injury, my husband winced. Enduring the stinging disinfectant, his expression was like that of a child. Seeing his face, all my resolve from before entering the living room vanished, and I was able to tell him about the doctor's suggestion without feeling tense. The doctor suggested that you should also get a fertility test. He thinks there's something wrong with me? I'm a healthy 25-year-old, you know? I thought the same, but if they find even a minor issue and fix it, it might increase our chances a bit. Oh, I see. Then, I'll go to the hospital with you next time. My husband quickly accepted my words and said he would go to the hospital. It seems my resolve was unnecessary once again. However, 3 months have passed since my husband agreed to go to the hospital. He still hasn't accompanied me. Aren't you coming to the hospital with me today? You can go to the hospital by yourself, can't you? I'm not asking because I want a ride. What about the test you were going to take? Oh, that. I'll go eventually. If there's nothing wrong, there's no need to rush, right? It's been 3 months already. You're coming with me today. All right, all right. Let me get dressed. Running out of patience, I grabbed my husband, who was lying on the sofa, and decided to forcibly take him to the hospital. It seems he finally resigned himself to going. I've been telling my husband to rest at home, but on weekends, he just lies on the sofa, scrolling through his phone. And when he finally gets up, he goes for a walk alone. Probably to avoid helping around the house after I've asked him to. I did say to rest, but this level of laziness wasn't what I had in mind. Watching my husband reluctantly change clothes to go to the hospital, I decided I would give him a stern talking to when we got back. At the hospital, my husband took the test. The test he underwent was a simple one, with results available in about 2 hours. During the wait, he ignored me, engrossed in his phone. 2 hours later, the results were in. It seems there's no issue with your husband. Is that so? Seeing my husband's face, he gave me a smug look without saying anything, confirming that the issue with pregnancy lies solely with me. This could make him even more uncooperative about having children. But the doctor wasn't finished speaking yet. There's no issue with the fertility test, but something you two mentioned earlier caught my attention. What's that? Yes. You mentioned your husband has ED tendencies. No, well, it's just work fatigue, you might say. My husband panicked like a maiden when the doctor discussed sensitive matters. Though there's really no need to be embarrassed about fertility treatment. Having not been to the hospital together for a while, it seems he's lost his immunity to such discussions. Thinking my husband wasn't going to make progress, the doctor turned to me to continue. I hear he's been falling more often lately. Also, he's been having trouble typing on the keyboard because of severe shoulder pain. And sometimes, even now, he finds it hard to speak. Yes. But is that bad? Well, we can't say for sure yet. But it would be good to check, just in case. Oh. I see. I understood the doctor's implication. It was time to get tested. However, my husband didn't seem to grasp the doctor's meaning. It's still before noon. Let's head to the neurology department doctor referred you to. What? Can't we just go home today? What if something is wrong? It's better to check these things early. The doctor said it's just a precaution. There's no need to rush. Come on, we're going. I grabbed my husband's arm again, determined to get him tested right away. He was clearly unhappy, but I couldn't worry about that. At the hospital, while waiting in the lobby, he grumbled to himself, blaming me. It's probably nothing. What a waste of time and money. I just want to go home. I ignored his childish complaints and waited for our turn. The tests he underwent were thorough, including blood and urine tests, as well as checks on his brain and muscle functions. Results would be available in about a week. Back home, my husband exploded with frustration over the extensive tests. Why do I need blood and urine tests if there's nothing wrong with me? If there's nothing wrong, then getting that confirmed should give us peace of mind, right? I hated having my blood drawn. What? Were you just scared of the needle? Shut up. Who likes getting shots anyway? I might have teased him a bit too much. My husband stormed out of the house in a bad mood. But getting tested isn't a bad thing in itself. Though he was upset, I thought he'd return to his usual self in a few days. However, his mood didn't improve, and the tests seemed to have flipped a misguided switch in him. A week later, as we waited in the hospital lobby to hear his test results, he suddenly blurted out something that sounded like a joke. I want kids, so I'm thinking about divorce. What are you talking about all of a sudden? Stop making weird jokes like this. It's not a joke. I figured you wouldn't yell like you do at work since we're in a hospital, right? That's why I thought it'd be easier to talk about it here. You want kids, so you're thinking about divorce, and then what? Actually, I've been in contact with a girl from high school. Things are going well between us. She's my age, young, and can have children. Don't get me wrong. We're not even dating, so it's not an affair. But if we divorce, I'm definitely going there. You might think it's because of my ED that you suspect there could be an issue on my end, but honestly, before infertility comes into play, nothing's happening with an old lady. Unable to yell at my husband in the hospital, I sighed deeply in frustration. So, that's why he's been glued to his phone and occasionally goes out alone. Even though he married me, 17 years older, knowing I couldn't have children, he's now looking to date a younger woman of his own age. Having watched my husband from his first year of work, I somewhat understand his thinking. He's ambitious, wanting to move on to the next step after gaining experience. That ambition serves him well at work. But it seems to have led him in the wrong direction in our relationship. He was shy and hadn't dated much before, so he fell for me as we spent time together at work. Having experienced love and marriage with me, he must feel confident now to approach younger women. And now, dissatisfied with me, he's ready to leave me for a peer who he believes he has a good chance with. Moreover, although he said it was okay if we couldn't have children, the prospect of being with someone who can easily conceive has suddenly made him desire kids. Just you wait. As I was about to retort in a subdued voice, our names were called. Honestly, I didn't want to hear the test results with him at that moment. But leaving now would make the doctors and nurses think strangely of me, and I didn't want them to think I ran away shocked by the divorce proposal. I entered the examination room with my husband, who looked pleased with himself for making such a declaration in the hospital lobby. I was furious at my husband's outrageous behavior. But my anger stopped abruptly and turned into laughter once the doctor began to speak. In the examination room, my husband sat on a stool, and I stood behind him. The doctor and nurse's solemn aura indicated that something was not right with my husband. However, my husband, filled with satisfaction from his declaration, was oblivious to their mood and kept smirking. But that smirk quickly disappeared as soon as the doctor began to speak. It's difficult to say this, but your husband may have early-onset Parkinson's disease.
Parkinson's disease? I've heard of it, but what kind of disease is it?
Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder that leads to muscle stiffness, causing movements to become awkward. It's also classified as a designated intractable disease. The constant muscle tension can result in walking difficulties and uncontrollable shaking of the hands and feet, necessitating support in the future. But I thought it was a disease that older people get. Yes, it's a disease that affects 1 in 100 people over the age of 60. However, about 10% of cases occur in people under 40. It's rare, but not impossible for someone in their 20s to develop it. My husband was speechless and pale upon hearing the doctor's words. It's a natural reaction to being told you have a designated intractable disease out of the blue. Since my husband seemed overwhelmed, I took over asking the doctor questions. So, in simple terms, it's a disease where muscles stiffen up? And that's why my husband has been slow at typing and falling over? Does that mean the disease has progressed significantly? That's a possibility. The ED might also be due to neurological damage. However, the symptoms your husband is experiencing are indicative of the early stages of Parkinson's disease. Early stages? So, can it be treated? My husband's face brightened a bit at the mention of early stages. The common belief is that diseases are easier to treat in the early stages. He seemed to share my hope that even a difficult disease could be treated if caught early. Unfortunately, there's currently no cure for Parkinson's disease. My husband's face fell again. I felt guilty for inadvertently giving him false hope. Despite the seriousness, I couldn't help but find his fluctuating emotions somewhat amusing. Don't be too down. Parkinson's disease progresses slowly. We can use medication to slow it even further. Many people don't experience life-altering symptoms until 20 or 30 years later. Some even go 50 years without significant issues. So, you should be able to continue working without problems for now. Hearing there was a chance his life wouldn't be affected immediately, his expression lightened once more. But, symptoms worsening in 20 or 30 years is just one scenario, right? There's a chance they could worsen in 5 or 10 years. And not knowing when the symptoms will worsen could be worrying, couldn't it? Your wife is right, you have to fight the anxiety that comes with this disease. Some people let the anxiety get the best of them and it affects their mental health. The doctor said, causing my husband's face to darken again. Despite the divorce talk, I wondered if I was being too harsh. That's why you need support. Please, make sure to support your husband through this. Yes, I understand. I replied to the doctor, brightening my husband's mood slightly as we heard him out. After the doctor's diagnosis, I went home with my shocked husband. As we entered the living room, he staggered towards the sofa, collapsed onto it without strength, looked at me, and said, "I'm sorry for everything. But I was happy when you immediately agreed to support me after the doctor suggested it. I shouldn't have mentioned divorce. I hope we can continue to count on each other." That was just lip service in front of the doctor's idiot. I'm going to get the divorce papers. They might be available online, but it's better to get them in person.
Hey! Stop joking! I'm sick, with a serious illness that will require future support. Are you planning to leave me?
Considering you were ready to leave me for a younger woman who could have kids, should you be saying that? If you need support, ask that woman.
No, wait, we should talk more about this divorce.
Ignoring him, I headed for the door. As I was about to put on my shoes, a loud thump from behind made me turn around. My husband had fallen in the hallway. I couldn't bring myself to care for his injuries anymore. I decided to go get the divorce papers, ignoring my fallen husband. I ended up divorcing him as he wanted. After our divorce, my ex-husband revealed his illness to the young woman he planned to date, but she quickly left him upon finding out. Realizing the commitment needed to be with someone facing a major illness and needing future support. It's understandable that younger generations, with plenty of options, would find it hard to make such a choice without deep love. It means that there was not yet that much love between the ex-husband and the woman. There are women out there who would understand his condition. But for a man with little dating experience like my ex-husband, finding such a person is quite the hurdle. After our divorce and being abandoned by the woman, my ex-husband was left alone. He started going to the hospital, but so far, it hasn't affected his daily life. However, he might need support in 20 or 30 years. The progression of Parkinson's disease seems slow, and there might be a chance for symptoms to become severe 50 years later. Relying on parents is an option, but decades from now, it's uncertain if they will still be around. Therefore, living alone might become challenging if symptoms worsen without knowing when and without anyone to rely on. Right now, my ex-husband is living each day in fear. Moreover, despite the potential future difficulties, he started job hunting after quitting his job. This is my fault. Since we married after a workplace romance, I inevitably had to explain the reason for our divorce to our colleagues. He said he wanted to divorce me because he's got a thing going with a younger woman who can have children. Having a steel mentality, I felt no shame in sharing the truth with everyone at work, even though I was once called the office old maid behind my back. Naturally, my ex-husband became the target of blame, losing his place at work and forcing him to change jobs. I hope he does well in his job away from me. I continue working at the same place after the divorce. It is seemingly more suited to work than married life. Considering our marriage lasted less than 2 years, I've decided to treat it as if it never happened. However, it appears my demeanor changed while I was in love and married, significantly altering my workplace image. Consequently, being called the old maid behind my back ceased, and the misunderstanding that I was harsh on my colleagues for the sake of being mean was cleared up. It was all for the sake of work.
Now, I find work easier than before the marriage and plan to keep on toughening up my colleagues.